Hello, my name is David, and this is my first video on YouTube in a long while. So I'm going to share with you how I got from zero Japanese knowledge to N3 level. I'll be sharing how I learned, what materials I'm using, and some of my experience from it. I'll also be talking about what I think is good to focus on for beginners. So if you are interested in learning the language, keep watching. So to start, I grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s. I was immersed in the massive J-pop wave, constantly exposed to Japanese media, and that really influenced my interest and it shaped my perspective. I was watching animes like Crayon Shin-chan, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, Digimon, Gundam, etc. I also listened to a lot of J-pop, and that time I was listening to Kinky Kids, Ayumi Hamasaki, Namie Amuro, SMAP, etc. So fast forward to 2015, I went to Japan for the first time and I fell in love with it. However, when I was there, I couldn't understand a single thing apart from arigato. So after my trip there, I decided I want to learn the language because I know I will be visiting again. And since then, I go to Japan almost every year except during COVID. Therefore, when I came back, I immediately signed up for Japanese class at Ikoma Language School, which is at Orchard, and I was there every Saturdays for around 3 to 4 years, I think. But I stopped when my sensei decided to leave Singapore and study in Australia. So in this video, I am going to teach you what you need to do if you decide to start learning from scratch by yourself and what are the resources you can get. The first thing you need to study, and there's really no way around it, is to learn all their alphabets and writing system. There are three writing systems: Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. For the basic, you can start by learning Hiragana and Katakana. Kanji is like their Chinese characters, but you can learn this at a later time. So both Hiragana and Katakana are phonic scripts and they represent the same set of sounds, but they are used for different purposes. You can just Google Hiragana and Katakana and then you'll get all 50 of them. So Hiragana are used for native Japanese words and their grammar, such as their verbs, adverbs, etc. For example, sakura, like cherry blossom, tabemasu, to eat, and mecha means very. On the other hand, katakana are used for foreign words, names, technical terms. So basically, they took the English name and made it fit into their own language sound, such as terebi, which is television, America, which is America. Both are crucial for learning Japanese, so it's important you practice and get a hang of both. So I recommend spending one day on hiragana and then one day on katakana. You can just write on flashcards and then revise it as and when. It doesn't have to be fancy and buy a book or whatever. Just Google it. After learning hiragana and katakana, you can start with their basic phrases like good morning, good evening, hello, my name is, thank you, etc. These are very common phrases. You can easily Google them. Okay, apart from common phrases, you should definitely focus on Japanese grammar. Generally, Japanese sentences follow a basic subject order verb structure, which is different from English subject verb order. For Japanese, the verb always comes at the end of sentences. For instance, watashi wa ringo o tabemasu. In this case, watashi is the subject, ringo is the object, and tabemasu is the verb. You might have noticed this sentence that has a wa and o in it. These are actually called particles, and particles are indicators in a sentence that tells us the relationship between words. They are extremely important in Japanese and they are also extremely complicated. Let me know if you want a video explaining it and how to use it, and I will make it. From forming a basic sentence, you can also modify it. For example, watashi wa ringo o tabemasu can become watashi wa ringo o tabemasen, meaning I do not eat apples. And watashi wa ringo o tabemasen can become watashi wa ringo o tabemasen deshita, meaning I did not eat apples. You can also provide more information by adding adjectives, time, quantity to it. So my main point here is that you need to know the basic sentence structures and then you can continue building onto it. Verbs in Japanese changes their ending sound to indicate what you are trying to say, and there are many conjugation forms, but for the basic, I recommend the te form, ta form, negative, past negative, dictionary form. Once you are familiar with it, you can move on to the other ones, and the good news is that they all follow the same rules, so once you grasp the concept, it's actually quite manageable. For vocabulary, I recommend learning 5 verbs a day and its various forms. Start with the common ones. I am putting down a link below in the description box so you can refer to it. For nouns, because they don't have conjugations, I recommend that learning 10 every day for common nouns like school, pencil, book, phone, etc. And as for adjectives, 5 to 10 a day is reasonable. You can learn the common ones like tall, short, pretty, handsome, kind. So with this method, you can slowly build your vocabulary, and over time it actually accumulates. My main textbook was Minno Nihongo. So if you want a textbook, try to go for the English translated version, because if not, you are just gonna feel overwhelmed with all the Japanese written in it. For grammar practice, I use Shinkansen Masuta. I liked it so far because it reinforces grammatical points and examples. This is for M4, but they have for other level as well. For vocabulary, I'm using this quick mastery of vocabulary. It is useful because it groups things according to categories like things you see at home, hobbies, colors, etc. They have different levels according to your needs. So if you're starting out, you can go for the M5 level one. If you're not ready to invest in a book, you can always Google it. I'll put a link in the description box below. Dictionary. If you are ready to commit, you can get this grammar dictionary. The reason I recommend this is because it explains every single grammatical points you'll ever come across. So it's very suitable for all levels, but do make sure you get the English version. For apps, I have 2 to introduce. The first is Todaii. This is a Japanese website, and they have simple news article from NHK. It breaks down the words you see, their meanings. They even have a grammar section explain the grammar points for you, so this is pretty helpful. Second app I am using is called Japanese. Basically, it is an online dictionary, and it is very useful because it shows you all the verbs and its different conjugation forms. Apart from that, it also shows you the noun as well. For listening, personally, I like to watch animes and drama because apart from listening how the words are sound, I can also know what is the context they are being used in. Speaking, I don't speak a lot of Japanese in real life, but I like to mirror what characters in anime said. So, for example, in this clip from Demon Slayer,
説得力ね。
watching it a second time, I'll repeat it like, 今はまだ6だけど、これからもっと強くなって。So the first tip for learning is that for Hiragana and Katakana, after you are familiar with it, you can always pick your favorite Japanese songs, search for the lyrics, but you can type in the song name and the Hiragana, so you can have the entire lyrics in Hiragana and Katakana. So as you listen along, you'll be able to follow, but at this point, it doesn't matter if you understand it or not. Tip number 2 is that if you are planning on going to a school, if possible, try to pick a teacher who is the same gender. That's because on top of teaching, during informal settings, when you're talking to your teacher, he or she will use a slightly more informal way of saying things. Like, I remember my sensei, she saw me with a new haircut and she asked, "Kami o kirimashita ka?" Which is kind of like a polite and softer way of asking. But if a male friend, he will probably go something like, "Kami o kita no ka?" So by listening that having the same gender, you can pick that up for yourself more colloquially. Tip number 3 would be to build on what you already know. So for my earlier example, watashi wa ringo tabemasu, you can replace ringo with sakana and tabemasu with mimasu. So it's like, I see fishes. Tip number 4 is do not compare it with English. And by that I mean when you learn something, just take it as it is. Don't try to compare it with English because I think that it will just make things more complicated and you don't want that. And the last tip would be to watch movies you already know in Japanese. Netflix and Disney Plus has this function, and I find it very helpful. Even playing it in the background helps because you can pick up the way it was said, and you already know the plot anyway. Okay, so here you go. Here are my tips on learning Japanese, the methods, the materials I use, and if you have any questions, do leave a comment and I will try my best to answer. Oh, and please subscribe. Ja ne!